VFL Park, it's the cutthroat first semi-final, Melbourne versus the West Coast Eagles. The Demons put together a magnificent second half last week, beating 13 goals to 4 to put paid to Essendon's chances. But today they're in another winner-take-all contest in which they've been the recent specialists. The Eagles, though, must regroup. They've now lost to Fitzroy and Hawthorn in successive matches, and another beating today would see them drop out of the premiership race after being pace setters all season. The 1991 first semi-final from VFL Park. And a very good afternoon, everyone, from VFL Park, and welcome to the cutthroat first semi-final, the West Coast Eagles versus Melbourne. The loser drops out, and of course the winner to take on Geelong in the preliminary final here at the same ground next Saturday afternoon. And of course yesterday here at VFL Park we had a thriller, the second semi-final, and it saw the Hawthorn side emerging victorious by only 2 points. Very inaccurate in the first term, but the Hawks getting up to win 13-17, 95 to 13-15. 93. And of course the West Coast Eagles and Melbourne have had some memorable clashes over the last few years. The Eagles have certainly the better record in their recent meetings, but of course there have been some rather fiery incidents between these two clubs, and I think it would be fair to say that there have been or there is no love lost between the two sides. Melbourne, of course, was the only side to defeat West Coast in Perth in 1990, with tempers erupting, players and officials becoming involved in some ugly scenes. And in round 16 of this year, Chris Lewis, the biting charge on him, and of course the subsequent suspension of Lewis, and as I said, relations between the two clubs are at an all-time low. But the Eagles, of course, have to regroup after their 23-point loss to Hawthorn last week at Subiaco, a match most people expected them to win. On the other hand, Melbourne, specialists in elimination contest, did particularly well against Essendon, coming back well after half-time to totally outplay and outscore the Bombers. The crowd this afternoon for the first semi, well, I guess it would be a little bit disappointing. A few showers in the area, but of course at the moment it probably wouldn't be in excess of, well, around about 40,000 I would suggest. And here come the West Coast Eagles now, out onto VFL Park. A ground, incidentally, on which they have played fairly well. Were the match at the MCG, I think Melbourne could almost start favourites. But this afternoon, here at VFL Park, the Eagles are generally expected to oust the Demons. The banner, as they will run through it. The ground, incidentally, is in particularly good condition despite the rain that I mentioned, and also the fact that the matches were played here yesterday. The last three meetings have gone to the West Coast Eagles last year, and the two this year, 14-15-99 to 2-8-20 in round one. An absolute shocker by Melbourne, but they regrouped after that fairly well. And in round 16 at the MCG, the West Coast coming away late in the game to win 14-16-100 to 11-10-76. And joining me in the commentary box this afternoon, a very good afternoon to Dennis Committee and Bernie Quinn.
Good afternoon, Pete.
Well, another cutthroat game, Dennis, and the Demons have been specialists in these.
Yes, good record certainly. As you said, a lot of feeling between these two sides. Provocative banner from Melbourne today, obviously expecting a nibble.
Yes, it was a little bit pointed, wasn't it, Dennis?
It was indeed. The Demons to bite back. What about these two sides? Djakovic, 8 goals last weekend.
And we look at the Melbourne half-forward line. Well, Gary Lyon is named there. I would expect him to play at centre-half back, in fact.
David Flintoff out of the team. Named in the centre, Simon Eishold comes in.
There's Paul Bryce back in the Melbourne side after injuring his wrist in that game up at Queensland.
Peter Sumich, 97 goals on the season. Rode a big job for him this afternoon.
And the big job also for Irving, picking up Jimmy Steins, of course the favourite for the Brownlow, and has been in sensational form.
So Flintoff out, Rodney Grinter gets a chance on the bench.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Rodney Grinter, a late inclusion in the Melbourne side this afternoon. Gerard Healy and Peter McKenna will be joining us on the boundary line and also in the rooms during the course of the day. We'll take a break and we'll be back with the action from the first quarter after this from VFL Park.